All right. Hello and welcome to The Natural Capitalist. This is the podcast where we answer your questions about natural capital markets. So that's questions about things like carbon, wildlife, timber, water, recreation, and so much more. Ideally, we are able to answer that question in 5 minutes or less. We're your hosts. I'm Zach.
And I'm Max.
We're the founders of NCX. So, Max, what is our question this week?
All right, looking in the mailbox, looks like this week it is Jack from North Carolina. He says, I'm interested in a carbon credit program for my land, but only on a short term basis, something like 1 to 5 years. Is there any option available for me?
All right. Well, Jack, so bad news up first. The answer is no. If we're talking about, standing forests, the answer is no. There's not a program from 1 to 5 years, but you are not alone in asking this question. It turns out that 95% of landowners are willing to engage in carbon programs that are short on the order of what you mentioned, 1 to 5 years, many out to even 10 years. But when you get into 20, 40, and certainly 100, uh, most landowners are not willing to engage in those programs. Like they don't want to encumber the land for their heirs, and they want to allow optionality. So, Max, if everybody is interested in this, why aren't there loads of programs
Well,
for landowners?
it's really a problem on the buy side. There's just a big gap between the buyers on one side and landowners like you, Jack, on the other side. Landowners want shorter term contracts, but the buyers, on the other hand, are usually insisting on 100-year contracts or more. The buyers are really into this concept they call permanence, which is the idea that the carbon is permanently stored out of the atmosphere, which is important for the shape of some of these climate commitments that they've made. But it's an evolving thing. Like 100 is a totally arbitrary number, right? Like 100 is not permanent, actually. It's just kind of a thing that everybody agreed on like 20 years ago or something, and that's changing.
That is changing. That's right, Max. And so Jack, if you were to look at the programs available 15 years ago, even 10 years ago, nearly all of them would have been about 100 years in duration. And that has slowly shifted because people just like you wanted to see shorter term contracts. That went from 100 to 40 and now 20-year contracts that are available. If you have grasslands, there are 5-year options. But I think there are risks involved in that as well, because 5 years, 20 years doesn't equal 100. So what's up with that, Max?
Right. Well, and the buyers are being told that they're buying a carbon credit, which is, a 100-year carbon storage thing. But if you're signing a 5-year contract, it's a very reasonable question to ask, like, what's happening to the back 95 of that, 100-year obligation that the buyers are being told about? And honestly, like, this is a pretty squiffy area in a lot of these carbon contracts right now. And it's something that it's pretty unclear who's holding the bag on the liability for that. And as a landowner, Jack, if you're thinking about a shorter term contract, that's something that you really need to ask the question about and make sure that, like, well, are you actually selling a 5-year contract, or are you actually selling a 100-year right to the carbon on your land? Like, are you going to have any restrictions on your ability to sell future carbon from your property? You really need to know that when you're going into a short term contract.
That's right. So again, Jack, answer is not right now, but it's moving in your direction. And perhaps as you're paying attention, as you're tuned in here, and certainly as we're kind of keeping you abreast of what's going on with these markets, you may well see programs that meet the duration and the risk tolerance that you have. So with that, Jack, thanks so much for the question, and thanks to all of our listeners here at the Natural Capitalist. Um, Natural capital markets are evolving quickly and creating a lot of opportunities, but also a whole lot of confusion. And that's why we're here to help you navigate these markets and find the right opportunities for you and your land.
Yeah, and if you have questions about the natural capital on your land, we'd love to hear from you. Shoot us an email at q@ncx.com. That's the letter Q at ncx.com. Thanks, and we'll see you next week.